Don't even know how to start this video. If you have stumbled across this video, welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda, and today I'm going to be talking about how I was diagnosed with heart failure and a condition called pulmonary hypertension. But hey, how's it going? My name is Amanda. I'm a 38-year-old mom of 2 boys on the autism spectrum, and I am the wife of a retired Army nurse. If I get emotional, please bear with me. I don't think that I will. I kind of have gotten through that part of it, I think, but it does vary. I mean, it just depends on every individual day, I guess. I was diagnosed in February of 2020 with a condition called pulmonary hypertension, which is basically high blood pressure in the lungs that will eventually lead to right-sided heart failure. The heart failure was something I only discovered a couple of weeks ago. At that point, I was kind of under the impression that I had some form of heart disease, not really understanding, I guess, the severity of it. So I have moderate pulmonary hypertension, and I will explain more about that in a minute. And I also am living with heart failure, in addition to a lot of other issues. They've discovered that I have interstitial lung disease. There are some issues with my liver, and I also have something going on that's autoimmune. But I went from being incredibly healthy to this, and I am only 38 years old, so I'm kind of at exactly the right age for pulmonary hypertension, which for the rest of this video I will refer to as PH. And obviously heart failure is a result of pulmonary hypertension. However, in my case, the heart failure is actually the cause, or one of the causes. So that's a little bit hard to wrap my brain around sometimes, especially considering that all of these tests that are coming back so outrageously abnormal now were not too long ago very, very normal. So what exactly is PH? PH is, like I said, high blood pressure in your lungs, and that causes the right side of your heart to have to work a lot harder, which leads to your heart becoming enlarged, which, bitch, I ain't the Grinch. I don't want my heart, to be huge, even though it is, just not physically, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So this is probably the one time in my entire existence where having a big heart is a bad thing. But thankfully, I have not shown any signs as of yet that my right side of the heart is being impacted, which is really, really good, to my pulmonary hypertension. So yeah, that's a little bit more about the illness itself. Let me tell you how it all started. So how did I find out that this stuff was going on? It really became apparent that something might be off was in January of 2019, my husband was retiring from the Army. We had just gotten through like 2 years of hell. It was 2 years. Felt like 7. We had just gotten through 2 really, really, really hard years. Like everything that could have gone wrong did, and I kind of endured numerous traumas that year. I dealt with a lot of mental issues as a result, and it took me a really long time to kind of overcome the depression, the anxiety, and the phobias that kind of developed as a result of everything that happened within a really short time frame, And so when my husband retired, we were literally on our last day to get out of the townhome. It was like this little townhome. It was so cute. I loved it, but it was disgusting. It was filled with mice. It was inhabitable. We would call for, you know, repairs and stuff, and it would just, everything was a big pain in the ass with this landlord. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So the day came that we needed to move out, and a lot of things had gone wrong, but the first being that the movers hired by the Army, that I would like to add, rescheduled our move by like 5 days. And that's not our fault, but you know, the landlord wanted us out anyway, which we were like, sorry, it can't happen until they actually move us out. And once they got everything out, there was a lot of things we couldn't do until they were done. So there was still a lot of little odds and ends and stuff that we had to finish up ourselves, and we did. But the day of the move came, and I woke up that morning and I had really, really swollen legs. They were like 3 times our normal size. They were super red. We thought it might be cellulitis. We thought it could be my heart, so we went to the ER. While we were there, the landlord returned our call because we had let them know what was going on at the hospital, and pretty much told us, I don't care, you still need to get out, like now. Like no empathy, no compassion, no nothing. They had just done an EKG, and I was like, you know what, they're not gonna help. I don't know how I'm gonna help you, because I was so sick that day and really tired and just so swollen. But I told them I'm gonna leave. So they took the IV out. I asked them, can you please check the EKG just to make sure that nothing's wrong before I go? They did. They went and looked, and he was like, yeah, there's nothing there. And I was like, okay. So they took the IV out, and I left. Went back to the house, ended up getting the heck out of there, as these people literally sat there and watched us the entire afternoon. It was awful. It was like the worst day. But the stress was just out of control. So literally the first sign that I was sick was when we were leaving Fort Carson, when my husband was retiring. And it went away. So, I mean, I didn't know what to think about it, but it just took me several weeks of a lot of rest and taking it easy, and I completely recovered, felt better. The swelling didn't happen again, and I was like, dude, I'm all over this. So I got my house together, decorated it, organized it, cleaned it, loved it so much. I had the house just immaculate and perfect, the way I'd always wanted my house to be. And I finally had the opportunity to do that. I loved my home oh so much. And then I had time. So I started taking on all these really cool hobbies. And then I started to study life coaching. Basically because of everything that I endured the years before that was just so incredibly life-changing and so hard for me to kind of get through. It wasn't really hard for me to, it was really hard for me to get through. What am I talking about? But I have a unique skill set in some ways, and I was kind of always an oddball, but those things that made me an oddball really served me well when it came to this situation particularly. So, I don't know how I made it through, because there were days I didn't think that I could hack it, and I did, and I came out on the other side. So, I really wanted to use that experience to better myself and to give back. I wanted something positive to come from that experience. I was determined to make the worst, period of time in my life the most hurtful, painful, and probably the only situation that has truly changed me, at least temporarily, for the worse. I mean, it was a really hard time for me, and I wanted to turn that into something as positive as I possibly could. And so life coaching is kind of what I came to do. And I really, really took my time and did a whole bunch of studying. I learned everything. I learned about business. I learned about coaching. I took a bunch of psychology, online classes, taught myself. I did anything and everything that I could to make myself as educated and as knowledgeable as possible. And I think I would have just done phenomenal. I really do. Unfortunately, right before I went to open my business the first time, I had my whole launch scheduled, everything. That was when I woke up again one morning and I was swollen beyond belief. And that time it did not go away right away. But thankfully, the doctor that I had seen, who was with a local company that does home visits, which is really cool. She had come out that day and followed up with me a week later, which isn't their typical MO. They don't really run their business that way, but she did for me, and I thought that was phenomenal. She went above and beyond. So grateful. She referred me to a cardiologist who did a bunch of tests. The test came back okay, and all was well. There were a couple of small abnormalities, but they weren't cardiovascular. And so the cardiologist told me, I need you to see a pulmonologist. The cardiologist said he was going to make a referral, never did. So I went and saw my primary care doctor, who, when I started telling her what was going on with me, she looked at me and she said, I wonder if this is pulmonary hypertension. She was the first person who took me seriously to that degree. And little did anybody know, but I had already kind of come to the conclusion that that was what I had. But I hadn't said anything to the doctor because I didn't feel that it was, I had really had no testing to really justify my suspicions. But she referred me to the pulmonologist. We stopped waiting on the cardiologist, who just didn't do it. Excuse me. When I got to see my new pulmonologist, he ran a bunch more tests. So at that point I had an echo and a bunch of EKGs, a bunch of blood work. And that was pretty much it at that point. But when I saw my doctor the day before I went in and saw my pulmonologist, she prescribed oxygen for me. They did a 6-minute walk test in the office, and we determined that my oxygen was dipping very low. And I knew that I was short of breath. I had no idea that it was that bad, and it was pretty bad. It was down to 80, I believe, at one point. So they got me on oxygen at night, or, if I am exercising or moving, which doesn't really happen a whole lot these days, even though I would love for that. But if I go walking, I will usually wear my oxygen just to be safe. She got me to the pulmonologist, who then, ran a whole bunch more tests. At that point, they did a CT scan, x-rays. We did a PFT, which is a pulmonary function test, more blood work. And the grand finale of all of that was, I did the sleep study. And then we also did a right heart catheterization. Would ask for anything. He was just very dismissive of my concerns and wouldn't return calls, and it got worse and worse. So I decided to get a second opinion by one of the best doctors. She is an associate director of the Pulmonary Hypertension program at National Jewish Hospital in Denver, Colorado, which is one of the top it is the #1 pulmonary hospital in the country. So I was feeling really good about that. I wanted to make sure that, I was seeing the best of the best, somebody who specialized exactly in what I am living with every day. So I got in to see this doctor, and I was so overwhelmed and stressed out by the time that I saw her, because I hadn't been around people in any capacity for such a long time because of quarantine, that when I was in their waiting room, I was just really overwhelmed and totally anxious. I have, obviously been on a hardcore lockdown because of the pandemic, and that's been kind of hard. It's been really hard. And being around especially large groups of people is scary for me, and it's very, very, very overstimulating because it's just been a long time. So I'm gonna have to kind of ease my way back into being around crowds, you know what I mean? And I had just kind of overcome agoraphobia, which is essentially, you know, at the heart of it, being in crowds is one of the most difficult thing when you live with agoraphobia. So I had just overcome that. And then, you know, the quarantine stuff really didn't do me any favors as far as that goes, but I'm really proud of how well I've done. I think I've kept it together pretty well. Anyhow, so I see her. We've had another appointment since, done a few tests, and I'm getting ready to do a bunch more. But, finish this. Okay, so when my doctor told me I had a stiff heart, right after all of that happened. So I want you to remember how my doctor had told me that I had a stiff heart. When I looked that up, something came up called stiff heart syndrome, and the prognosis for that was horrendously terrifying. I literally was having a freak out like I can't even describe. My husband called back just to clarify, because he's like, you just told my wife she's gonna have a very long, happy, healthy life, but she has this, like this is terminal, like quickly terminal. And the doctor said, no. It's just the way I was describing it. It's actually referred to as diastolic dysfunction. And it is a stiff muscle in your heart, but yeah, anyways, it was just a lack of clarification there. So we had to obtain the clarification ourselves, which was all good. So we found that out, and I looked that up, and it was exactly what he said it was. And I was like, okay. And I didn't really look any further. And then when I was looking through the doctor from National Jewish, when I was looking through her reports, there was no reference to diastolic dysfunction. What it said was, it said heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And I broke down. Heart failure, like we went from you're gonna live a long, healthy life to I'm in heart failure. And when I looked up the diagnosis that she gave me, the first thing that popped up in parentheses beside it was diastolic dysfunction. So in other words, like I felt very kind of betrayed. I really did, because I think she gathered very quickly that I was not aware of the severity of my heart problems. And I was not aware. But she wanted to redo everything. And the first appointment, I didn't understand that. But by the second, I kind of did. And I think I did. My assumption is that she is a professional doctor and she doesn't want to make assumptions that aren't valid, especially verbally to her patient, which is basically, you know, that maybe something was done incorrectly, or because none of it really makes a whole lot of sense. And so she wants to redo things. That's my opinion. I'm not positive. That's just what I have presumed from where I'm at. So I have agreed to just go ahead and redo everything, you know, just to be safe. And we're gonna do it all. I actually start doing most of the testing next week, and I was supposed to see a rheumatologist Monday, but it snowed and we had to get back to where we live, which is about an hour away from Denver. We had to get back home to get my son from preschool, and there are always accidents in Denver, like in around Denver. So you're almost always like running an hour to 2 hours behind what you think you should be. And that is genuinely the truth. Like almost every single time we go to Denver, there is an accident that's coming. Almost every single time we go to Denver, there's an accident when we're coming home. People are, yeah. I lived in DC, okay? Let's just put it this way. I lived in DC, drove in DC. DC is like one of the most difficult places in the country to drive, okay? They're just nuts there. They are so aggressive, but you know, the difference is in DC, they actually knew how to drive. They were just really aggressive and really ballsy on the road. But they were skilled drivers. Here in Colorado, I feel like there isn't a whole lot of skill in the driving, and that people drive just as crazy as they do in DC, but they lack the skills that DC drivers have, if that makes sense. You see accidents in DC. I mean, I saw a man hit a deer right in front of me like a couple days after I moved there. I was traumatized by that. Literally, that made me cry for hours on end. So there are accidents, but it wasn't at the same level, and just the stupidity on the roads was so much less than it is living in Colorado. So that's my summary of driving in Colorado versus DC. Back to the topic at hand. So we're right now doing all of these tests. Well, I get these blood tests like 3 days after I found out that I was in heart failure. I get the results of some blood work. And I went from having really unremarkable blood work in spite of what's going on with me in other areas to really terrifying results, like really terrifying results. I am extremely deficient in phosphorus, which one of my doctors thinks could potentially be something genetic. She said maybe you want to think about getting some genetic testing to find out, because that can cause bone pain and this, that, and the other. But I have some really severe neck problems and back problems. So I've lived in pain since 2008 when I first hurt my back. I had back surgery in 2012. You know, I've been through the ringer. I have gone through it for real. And you know, lately I am just completely beat down. Aside from this swelling in my feet and all of the other symptoms like this, the shortness of breath and let's see, there's fatigue, severe fatigue. I never slept past like 8 a.m. in my entire life until I got sick. And then all of a sudden I was waking up at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Thankfully that has subsided a bit, but I'm still tired all the time. I just fight through it a lot more than I used to. But I have really severe neck issues, really severe back pain, lower and thoracic, which is your mid-back. I have some kind of metabolic disorder that they just discovered, and I have also tested positive for some kind of an autoimmune condition. I tested positive for myositis antibodies, so I believe U1 is what they were, and I had some other concerning things that kind of are looking like it is potentially like polymyositis or dermatomyositis, I believe. Dermatomyositis. There we go. So either that or polymyositis, which are both autoimmune conditions that either attack the skin and muscles or the muscles. And obviously your heart and lungs are muscles. I've also might have some liver issues going on, which my liver was completely healthy. So this is in relation to everything else going on. The autoimmune kind of really makes things concerning. That is what could potentially put me into the pulmonary arterial hypertension or group 1 category, which is kind of nerve-wracking because at that point you are throwing so many different conditions in that I feel like just keeping myself alive might be hard. Pulmonary hypertension is considered a terminal illness. There is one group, which is group 4, that is curable. Aside from that, pulmonary hypertension is an incurable illness, and it is a progressive illness, which means that it does get worse as time goes on. Type 3 pulmonary hypertension is reversible. Heart failure can be reversible sometimes. And I'm hoping that by really changing everything in my life, that I can survive this. The average lifespan of somebody from the time of onset of symptoms without treatment is 2.8 years on average. It is a very rapidly progressing disease. And the first weeks after finding out that this was my future were the most terrifying weeks of my life. The most heartbreaking, the scariest, and truth be told, I'm still scared. I'm still terrified. I have this huge sense of FOMO, but in a totally different way. It's like I don't want to miss out on anything because I'm not going to be around. And that it breaks my heart. It makes me so sad. It makes me scared. I haven't told my story in full, and this is kind of my first step in doing so. I have created for myself my version of a bucket list, which I am referring to in this vlog and on all of my social media and on my upcoming blog as my living list and my legacy list. So these two things are what I am so excited to get started with, because it's just gonna make me feel better. Living during the pandemic with this illness has been the hardest thing I've ever done. Literally, I've had so much time to think, and it really took a toll on my business. I tried again to start my business, and literally that's when the pandemic was declared. So, because I was feeling a little bit better. I had been on treatment for about a month and a half and had made some improvements, and it's been very up and down since then. And, I've had a couple of doctors tell me at this point that they think that, I am definitely dealing with multiple conditions at this point, which is really scary. I went from being completely and totally healthy, minus my back issues and blood pressure problems, which were highly controlled at that point, to being a 90-year-old woman in a 38-year-old woman's body. And it's a lot. But I feel very strongly that everything in life happens for a reason, and so I've decided to document my journey, kind of have you guys join me, not just follow me. I want you to join me. I would love to lock arms with you and approach, revitalizing our health together, because that's what I'm really focused on doing. My goal is to do as much as I possibly can by changing my diet, my habits, my exercising, anything and everything that I can do to make a difference in my future, to give myself some more life, to give myself more time on earth, more time with my family, more time to accomplish the things that are so important to me, the better. So I thought, what a great way to kind of start this off. So, kind of have you guys follow along for my transformation. And then when things are safe for me to go, I am going to hit the road and tackle my living and my legacy lists before anything gets to a point where I'm unable to do so. So I want to take advantage of as much time as I possibly can. I want to give back and do, not for the greater glory of myself, but I want to do that for my boys. I want to do it for people who are currently fighting something and they don't think that they can fight that thing and do something wonderful at the same time. I'm here to tell you that you can, and I believe in you. Anybody can. If you want it badly enough, if your mind is set to it enough, you can do anything. And that is why I am challenging myself to this mission. I would really love more than anything to not only gain a good support system for myself and, have some people to cheer me on when I don't have the energy, the faith, or the heart to do so for myself. I think that would be just so incredible, because I haven't had the best support system, obviously because of the pandemic, and just a lot of stuff has been going on. So it would be beyond fantastic, beyond meaningful if I had that type of support, and it would be so awesome to give that kind of support to other people as well. So since this video has gone on for so stinking long, I'm gonna go ahead and end that here. I really hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me as much as I enjoyed hanging out with you. Please remember that you can get through anything. Even the stuff that you don't think that you're capable of handling, you're a lot stronger than you believe. You can make sure to find the good in any situation, even in the worst situations. There's always a way to find a light in the dark, and my goal is to find the light. My goal is to be the light. My goal is to raise awareness, to encourage women to advocate for themselves and to trust their instincts, because I knew after a very short time of being sick, I started getting chest pains and just a lot of things started happening, and I was very dizzy. I was just so weak, so tired, and I still am. Today's a good day for me, but trust your instincts. When those first heart tests came back and he gave me the all clear, we were overjoyed. But I remember walking out of the office and telling my husband, as happy as I am, I don't think that I lied. I don't think that's right. And I was right. And, just trust your instincts, advocate for yourself. Don't take no for an answer. As a patient, you have rights. You have the right to say no. You have the right to request testing. You have the right to make suggestions and to be an active participant in your own healthcare. And for any woman that is watching, in their 30s, in their 20s, in their 40s, it can happen to you too. Heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and it can happen to you. It affects more and more women, younger and younger, every single year, y'all. And it is so incredibly important to know the signs, the symptoms, to know what to look out for, to know what might be something serious that justifies going to the doctor, and to know what, may not be a huge concern. Keeping yourself educated and informed is the best way that you can stay on top of these things. Be very careful about what you're putting into your body. What you put in is going to be reflected at some point or another in your health. And I promise you that what you put in is so incredibly important. Food-wise, drug-wise, alcohol-wise, cigarettes, tobacco, whatever your, vice might be, really think hard, think long, think twice, and make informed and educated decisions. You get one life, and it is such an incredible gift. I don't care if I am sick. I know that I want to live as long as I possibly can because I have some living to do. And right now, I'm going to focus on getting healthy so that when this shit show is over, I can get out into the world and fly high, do some awesome traveling, do some really cool things. I want to experience anything and everything that I possibly can without giving myself a heart attack or making myself unable to walk because of my back. So I want to find a way to zip line without that jolt at the end. But anyhow, I'm going to figure some of these things out, but I'm going to share my bucket list, aka my living and my legacy lists with you guys coming up in January. And I'm going to show you what I'm working towards. And if you want to help me scratch off number one, my number one goal on my living list is to first get 10,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel and maybe even on my other one. So head on over to Lipstick Life Coach on YouTube. That is my makeup and coaching page that I will be posting the first video of its kind. It'll be makeup and life coaching every Monday, and I'm super excited about that. So be sure to join me in January for my Monday series, Makeup and Motivation, aka life coaching. It's going to be so much fun. I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for taking the time. If you are still here, my gosh, you are patient. You deserve an award. Introduce yourself below because you're like Superwoman. Please let me know who you are in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this video. Do you have any questions or if there's anything that you would like to know, please drop your questions in the comments below. I have tagged all of my socials in the description box, so please go join me there so that we can hang out and get to know each other on a more personal level. And until I see you guys again, my name is Amanda. Remember, the dust settles, champions don't. I am out of here. Bye guys.